Hi there, my name is Katana, and in this video I'm going to guide you through installing Jupyter Lab and JavaScript Kernel for Jupyter Lab. So the first thing we are going to do is to create a virtual environment where we will install the lab. Okay. Yeah, so there are different tools for virtual environments you can use. You may use pipenv or virtualenv, whichever you are comfortable with. But in this case, I'm going to use Python 3 venv as my virtual environment tool. So if you don't have it and you're interested, this is the way you will install. So it's simply sudo apt, then install Python 3 -venv. Okay, to give it your password and then to go. So in my case, I already had installed it. So yours should take maybe a few seconds and then the installation will be done. So the next step is creating the virtual environment. Okay, so it's very simple. Python 3, then -m, venv, and then now the name of your virtual environment, right? So the name will be anything that you prefer. So maybe something like jlabnv. Again, something you prefer, something you can remember. Okay, good. So after you've created the virtual environment, remember to activate it. That's important. Just to ensure that, again, you're not installing the Jupyter Lab dependencies and anything else within your computer main environment. Okay, so activating this virtual environment is very simple, just like dot, which is source, and then the name, which is JLab, and then inactivate. Okay, after that, we'll use pip to install Jupyter Lab. Right. So this again may take a few seconds, depending on the speed of your internet, or maybe a few minutes. Right, so the installation is now done, and as you may notice, there are quite a number of dependencies that were installed together with Jupyter Lab, right? And actually, this is the main reason as to why I prefer installing Jupyter Lab within a virtual environment compared to the main environment. Again, to avoid any collision or corruption of the dependencies within my main environment. Okay, great. So just like that, you already have Jupyter Lab. Yeah. So the next thing we are going to do is to test our installation just to ensure that it works. But remember, we still have one thing to do, which is installing the JavaScript kernel. Okay. Yes. So the command to run Jupyter Lab, you guessed it right, it's just Jupyter Lab. Yeah. But again, you realize that I'm opening this maybe within my home folder, which is not the right thing, right? So instead of doing that, what I can do is let's create a simple folder, maybe test, we call this test lab, then cd into test lab, and then we can now open Jupyter Lab from our test lab. Okay, so that will be better. Okay, yes, so it's like that. And There we go. So as you can see, Jupyter Lab is now opened in our browser over here. You can always copy and paste the link if you want to have it run on a different browser, but this will by default open on your preferred or default browser. So you may notice that I have already 3 kernels here, that is for Python, JavaScript, and Ruby. In your case, you're going to have only 1 kernel for Python. Okay, so what we need to do, or at least what you need to do, is now going ahead and installing the JavaScript kernel, which is very, very simple. So that's the next thing we are going to do, and then we'll move back and test our installation. Okay, great. So navigating back to the terminal, we can close this, Control C, and then press Y, and we are back there. So for you to install the JavaScript kernel, you need to have installed Node.js. And so if you want to check if you already have Node.js, it's just as simple as node-v. For me, I have version 16 of Node. You may have a different version, but it doesn't matter as long as you have Node installed. If you don't have Node installed, again, I can leave a link, guide you through the installation of Node. Okay, good. So now that I do have Node installed, we can go ahead and use npm to install the JavaScript kernel. So it's more or less npm install -g and then ijavascript. Okay, yeah, so this again may take a few seconds, minutes, and then we'll move on. Good. Finally, our installation is done, and it's a high time that we now go and check our notebook, right? Or our lab. So again, remember to run this Jupyter Lab, save it. Good. So you can see it's still loading. Good, there we go. So we'll create a notebook with the JavaScript kernel over here. And yes, you can always confirm the kernel you're running at this point. Yeah. And if you have multiple kernels installed, you can always switch from kernel to kernel just by selecting over here. So let's rename our file to hello world. Yeah. Again, the name of the file doesn't matter, right? Should be something to do with the program you're writing. So the importance of using the notebooks is actually you being able to document your code, maybe with Markdown at the same time as you execute maybe your JavaScript code or Python code or maybe Ruby, whatever language you may be using. So to toggle between your code and Markdown, it's as simple as escape and then M. So M is for Markdown, and then if you want to switch from Markdown back to code, it's escape and then Y. Okay. You ask me why they chose to use Y instead of C? Absolutely don't know, right? Yeah, but we're going to start with Markdown first, maybe just as a title to show you how this works. So I'm going to call this hello world. Sorry, hello world, right? And after that, you have 3 options to execute this cell or to run this particular cell. You can either use Alt Enter. So when you use Alt Enter, it's going to execute a specific cell and then create another cell below. Okay. You can use Shift Enter. So if you press Shift Enter, it will again execute the cell and move to the next cell if there is any. If not, create a new cell. Yeah, a new blank cell. Alternatively, if you don't want to create any other cell, you can just use Control Enter. So in this case, I think Alt or Shift Enter, all of them will still do the same thing, right? So Alt Enter, we now get our title, and then we have our cell as a code cell, right? Maybe time for that a long-awaited console.log. Console.log, hello world, no spaces, right? There you go. Yeah, slow, but it works. Right. So hello world, it is JavaScript. Yeah. So just like that. Again, if you want to maybe create a new cell below, I simply can use Alt Enter, and then I have a new cell. Well, if you don't want to run a particular cell, maybe you just want to create like other cells below, you can use like B for below and then A for above, right? So escape B and then escape A. Alternatively, you can use these things over here, these icons. This will create a cell below, and you have as many other options as you may want. You may toggle actually from Markdown to code using this here too. Yeah, so in this event, escape and then maybe create multiple cells if you do want. Maybe this will be, perhaps you want to write another title, something, title 2. You may notice this is just actually a code cell, but I need to make it a Markdown cell, right? And then there we go. So I have my title 2. Perhaps you have some more code here uh, documented, whatever you wish. Great. So that is on the other side of JavaScript. For example, now that we have two kernels like JavaScript and Python, you can also create maybe something maybe to do with Python if you know Python or if you are a Python guy. So that will just be as simple as you choose or select the Python kernel, then you can do write any Python code within this notebook. So simple as maybe print and then hello world, right? Simple as that, and you're good to go. Great. So those are the few simple things with the notebook. You can kind of again toggle the sidebar, the icons over there. You can rename the file just by right-clicking on it and then rename to whatever name you want. Yeah, and with that you're good to go. You can run like the entire notebook or something. Good. So having taken you through that, perhaps it's just another thing to ensure that when you want again to perhaps use the notebook, you know the best way to run it and all that. So we are going to move back to the command line, maybe teach you some few aliases and what you definitely need to ensure that the notebook is absolutely operational. So we'll close it. Again, closing the notebook is as simple as Control C and then select Y or press Y and then enter. Just like that, right? So in this case, you realize if we were to deactivate our environment and you try running Jupyter Lab, right? This does not work. It's because we installed our Jupyter Lab within the environment called JLab env. Okay, so every time, for example, you shut your machine or you close the terminal and want to use Jupyter again, you always need to ensure that you activate your virtual environment. So in this case, uh, git source and then what was the name? JLab, right? So JLab env, and then oh, there's a thing that we're not doing right over here. We are trying to source it from a different path, right? So we are over here, and if we ls, we don't have that folder, right? So you need to ensure that you are at the right path. So in our case, we created the environment within our home folder. So that will be something like source and then jlab env and then, bin activate. Then you've been able to kind of activate it. But as you can see, then that becomes really boring because you always have to switch to this particular path or maybe use a very long, path. Like if I just wanted to stay at test lab and then like kind of use all those, uh, whatever that lengthy string path to make it work, right? So the best thing you can do is one, you can create an alias for it, right? Maybe you can call it activate, you can call it anything, right? So what you need to do in this case is one, you can use the advantage of either bash aliases or um, maybe .bashrc Ubuntu. So that's what you're going to do, and you should be good to go with that. So in this case, again, we're just going to deactivate it, our environment, and so we're going to use bash rc, right? So dot bash rc over there, and then what we're going to do in this case, we are just going to say alias, and then what is the name of the alias that we do want? Maybe we say uh, if we call env, it kind of activates it, right? You can call activate, or maybe just call this activate. I have an alias somewhere in this file, activate, so that's why I don't want to use kind of activate over here in my bash aliases, right? So activate, let's call this activate e, right? Yeah, so activate e is equals to, and then we want to point it to a specific path. So is equals to and then quotes, and then in this case, just want to have something like you know, representing for home, like home, your home folder, and then what do you want to do? Actually, you want to source that home folder, and then um, within the home folder, we have something like JLab. We call this JLab env, right? Slash bin slash activate, just like that, right? Good. So we can exit. So Control X, Y, then enter. There we go. So you realize after you do that, you need to again um, either restart your terminal or maybe open a new terminal instance or literally restart the session to use the alias. So in this case, we call that activate E. And as you can see, we already have, just zooming in, ensure that you can see. So activate E, and there you go. So that's the alias we created, and then you can use just deactivate and you're good to go. If we move again to test, maybe test lab, and then activate E, it still works. So you don't have to navigate from point to point for this to work correctly. So at least with that simple alias, you are good to go. You are able to activate your virtual environment so quick, and then you are also able to, um, navigate from one point to another. Maybe another good thing that you may want to do, let's say that typing every time you need to do like Jupyter and then lab, space lab, right? That might not interesting. Maybe if you type slow as I do, may want to use that as an alias, right? And so if you want to do the same thing again, you just need to go to nano. Then nano is actually an editor, so it's like bash rc bash Control X. What did we go to? Oh, we are using a different bash rc, so need to navigate to the one that is the home folder, right? So slash dot bash rc. Then over here, you can add maybe another alias. So in this case, maybe you say jlab, then is equals to Jupyter. So Jupyter Lab, the command that you've been running, right? So like this, you are able to use Jupyter Lab as your command. Save it and you're good to go. Again, remember, you need to open another instance for it to work. But anyway, I think for me, I already have that as an alias, so was to use it just like Jupyter Lab, and there we go, it opens up. So that's how it works. Okay. Yeah, again, we touched a bit on aliases, which is just an important thing to uh, again have those long commands maybe written in a more simpler way. Anyway, a bit lengthy, but all in all, thank you very much. Go have fun with Jupyter Lab. Thank you.